Maybeshewill are an instrumental band from Leicester, United Kingdom whose music is characterised by the use of programmed and sampled electronic elements alongside guitars, bass and drums. History: Maybeshewill was formed by guitarists Robin Southby and John Helps whilst the pair were studying together at university in 2005. They released their first record Japanese Spy Transcript on the band's own label, Robot Needs Home Records in 2006 with Tanya Byrne on bass guitar and Larry Milne on drums. The 4-track EP was well received by the press and attracted the attention of Nottingham's Field Records, who released the Paris Hilton sex tape as part of a split 7 single with Ann Arbor later that year. In August 2006 a remastered version of Japanese Spy Transcript was released in Japan on the XTAL label, which was set up specifically for the release by the Media Factory Group. Shortly after this release the band dissolved temporarily. In May 2007, John and Robin began working with drummer James Collins and bassist Andrew Jackson, along with a number of guest vocalists and musicians on an album entitled Not for Want of Trying. The record was released on Monday 12 May 2008 through Field Records, and was chosen by BBC Radio 1 DJ Hugh Stevens as his album of the week in its release week. The Paris Hilton sex tape also featured on the cover CD of June's edition of Rock Sound magazine. 13 months later, on June 7, 2009, the band released their second album Sing the Word Hope in 4-part harmony through Field Records, with Victoria SZTUKA taking Andrew Jackson's place on bass guitar. This was a heavier record which saw them continue to try to break away from the post-rock tag with which they are often labelled. The record was received well by both press and fans alike, but did receive some criticism for failing to depart substantially enough from the band's established sound. After the release of Sing the Word Hope, the band returned to the 3-piece lineup of James Collins, John Helps and Robin Southby for a brief period before they were joined in 2009 by Jamie Ward, a former member of Kite and Tired Irie who was to guide the recording session for their third album, as well as fill the vacant position of bassist. In 2011 the band became a 5-piece with longtime collaborator Matthew Daly performing live keyboards. In May 2011 the band released I Was Here for a Moment, Then I Was Gone, their third full-length record. According to press releases, the band approached the record as if it were their first album, ignoring any criticism of their previous work, be it positive or negative, and distancing themselves from any expectation of what they might produce. Produced by Jamie Ward, the record was the first to be recorded in traditional studio spaces and consequently is more polished than any previous recordings. Live strings and brass were provided by members of Her Name Is Calla and Fight Fire with Water, adding more organic sounds to the band's electronic palette. The album received universally positive reviews from the music press, was played in its entirety twice on Kerrang Radio and gained Maybeshewill Rock Sound's Band of the Week accolade 2 weeks running. In March 2014 the band announced that they would release their 4th studio album through German-based record label Superball Music. The album's title, Fair Youth, and release date, August 25, 2014, were announced in June 2014. Maybeshewill tour very regularly across the UK, Europe and Asia. This has seen them pair up with And You Will Know Us by the Trail of Dead, Light, Long Distance Calling, Earthtone 9, and You and I, and So I Watch You from Afar and Cats on various excursions. They have also appeared at the Great Escape, Summer Sunday Weekender, Truck Festival, Brainwash Festival, 2000 Trees, Hockley Hustle, Arctangent and Dot to Dot festivals. In September 2015 the band announced that they would be disbanding after a brief final tour. Ethics and Ethos. The band have stated in their biography that they are concerned about the state of the mainstream music industry and as such endeavor to be as self-sufficient as possible. Originally the band kept the duties of manager, booking agent and press agent in-house as well as releasing records on their own label Robot Needs Home. As the band has grown, however, they have found it necessary to work with others. They now release their records through independent labels and work with a small team of people for booking and press while still managing and tour managing themselves. They record and mix all their musical output, with Jamie Ward taking the lead on their more recent recordings. In the liner notes of Sing the Word Hope in 4-part harmony they published a brief guide to the approach that they take, as well as providing information on how they go about recording. Although not a political band, many of the samples and song titles within their music hint at broadly left-wing, somewhat socialist ideas. For example, this time last year from Sing the Word Hope in 4-part harmony uses a sample from I Heart Huckabees in which the characters discuss whether a desire to preserve open space is a socialist idea, and Not for Want of Trying's title track includes the long famous monologue of Howard Beale from 1976 film The Network bemoaning the state of modern society, but praising the community in which the band exists and suggesting hope for the future. Robot Needs Home. Since their inception, Maybeshewill have operated the business elements of the band under the name Robot Needs Home. This label set up by guitarist John Helps runs many of the band's affairs, but also works to support the wider music community which the band is part of. Continuing the band's own DIY ethos, the label works on the basis of promotion by association, collecting together artists who share a common ethic, and encouraging collaboration. As well as operating as a record label, Robot Needs Home provides booking and management services to other bands, and promotes shows in and around the city of Leicester, including the Maybeshewill curated White Noise Festival. The label has released most of Maybeshewill's smaller and digital releases, as well as their debut EP Japanese Spy Transcript. Musical style. The band have described their sound as instrumental rock with electronics, while Drowned in Sound described them as sounding like Mogwai would if the latter had ever found love in an art house cinema. And then were beaten around the head with a keyboard. Comparisons have also been made with Sigaranki and Cube Des, and 65 Days of Static were often mentioned by reviewers as a likely influence on their earlier work. Their tracks often include samples of film or other dialogue. Not for Want of Trying contains a sample from Network, while Sing the Word Hope in 4-part harmony includes samples of broadcaster Edward R. Murrow, and excerpts from Young Winston. Members. Current members: James Collins, Matthew Daly, John Helps, Robin Southby, Jamie Ward. Former members: Victoria SZTUKA, Andy Jackson, Dave Voss, Lowry Muln, Tanya Byrne, Chris Tiers, Scott West. Discography. Albums: Not for Want of Trying, Sing the Word Hope in 4-part harmony, I Was Here for a Moment, Then I Was Gone, Fair Youth. EPs: Japanese Spy Transcript, singles and minor releases, Ann Arbor/Maybeshewill Split, Seraphim and Cherubim/Heart Flusters, Anti-Semantics, The Remixes Volume 1, Amateur Grammatics, The Remixes Volume 2, Maybeshewill/Her Name Is Color Split, The Remixes 2005 Euro 2010, To the Skies from a Hillside, Critical Distance, Red Paper Lanterns, Compilations, Kill All Humans, Notes 1, Tellison a Euro Contact. Remixed, White Noise 1, Truck 12, Not for Want of Trying +4, White Noise 2, Off the Cuff, Exports 01. References. External links, official website.